Welcome to Stuck Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between a manager and a leader, whether it has to do with your employees or your clients. And I'm so happy to have Megan Robinson from eLeader Experience. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, Mary. I'm so excited to be here. This is one of my favorite topics and so important for everyone to hear.
Really is. So let's start with because startups have to wear both hats. So let's talk about what's the difference and what makes a manager good and what makes a leader better.
I love that you said good and better. When we have to wear both hats, I try really hard not to use language like better, because we do need both of these components. And so often the managers, frankly, get the bad rap. So when you Google image, and I was doing this because I was really trying to show the difference visually between those managers and leaders, and you Google image manager, and it is all negative. It is someone that is micromanaging and forcing something upon you and trying to hound you. But in reality, I like to think of management just as managing processes. And for businesses to be effective, for relationships, for employees to know what they need to do, they have to have strong processes. So anytime you're managing, it's really going through what are the processes, what are the procedures, what are the deliverables, the deadlines, really making sure those I's are dotted and T's are crossed and that things are getting followed through on. On the flip side, leaders where it gets a little exciting, right? Everyone's like, oh, I want to be a leader. No one says I want to be a manager, typically. So on the leadership side, I look at leadership as everything that has to do with people because you lead people. And so you need to be able to have influence. You need to be able to convince, motivate, inspire, create that vision that people can align to, the communication style. A lot of that nuance goes into your leadership skills. And so whether you've been in business for 50 years or for 5 minutes, right? It really takes both of these sides for you to be successful because you cannot be that visionary leader and amazing with people and then just be terrible at the processes. Because we all know those people in our lives that are leaders that are very magnetic and charismatic, but there's no substance to them. And they're missing out on that management or they start to get lost in it. And so we all know those managers that are very precise, very specific, have really strong processes. But when it comes to people, when it becomes to dealing with ambiguity, they struggle.
Right.
And so combining both of those together is so crucial.
And you don't want to come out of a meeting being inspired, but not having a clue what you're supposed to do with that.
How often does that happen?
So, yeah, I'm so fired up, but where am I going to go with this energy? So,
Yeah.
yeah, depending on what employee or person you're talking to, or investor you're talking to, you need to know whether they need to be inspired or given a specific call to action.
Well, what I love about that example is it actually gives you the opportunity to fill in the blanks. And the most successful, the most effective entrepreneurs, the most successful business owners are the ones that can flex. So when you are in those conversations and it is all on the vision, it's all on the leadership side, it's all on the people, and you don't have those concrete next steps, I give you immediate permission to ask those questions, to make sure that you have balance in the conversation so that it doesn't get lost. And on the flip side, if you have someone that is very meticulous and you're talking with investors and they're firing off all these questions, how are you connecting with that person? Are you bringing that component into it? And so having those skill sets for both sides lets you have that flexibility with it.
And especially when you're doing a pitch, it's good to have both components available because by and large, for particularly early stage startups, investors are investing in the person and they want to know that there's passion there. They expect competence, but they want to see that passion. So that's where the leader comes in, right?
It's so funny. I was watching Shark Tank because I am a secret Shark Tank lover. Not so secret. I totally love it. And this entrepreneur didn't get a deal and it was coming out of the tank and they were so miffed. And they were like, well, you know, you really invest in the person. It's about investing in the person. And if you heard any of the feedback from the sharks, it was very much, well, your numbers weren't there. You didn't have a process for it. You had nothing that was investable. And it shows that imbalance that can happen so quickly, and making sure that you have both parties to the table that really creates the complete package.
Right, that manager component where you gotta know your numbers. Absolutely have to know your numbers. And if you're really that uncomfortable, get a co-founder.
Great advice. And I love that flexing to meet other people, knowing where their deficiencies are, knowing where their opportunities are. I know in my career several times, I actually did have a business partner, and I do a lot with DISC behavioral styles. And so you can kind of see that management leadership shift in preferences within that. And I actually started shifting my style to meet them and to start making sure that we really were balanced.
Because every successful company has all 4 components of DISC. You really need them all, and you need them balanced real well, right?
Correct.
So, what's the top 2 attributes a leader really needs?
Ooh, I will say the biggest gap I see in leadership right now is really effective listening. And it is such a simple thing when you think about it, and it is so overlooked. That's how you're getting that engagement and the buy-in for your team. It's what you're listening for, where the challenges, the concerns, the gaps, the opportunities. You're listening to the market, you're listening to your team, you're listening to your customers, you are listening to everyone. And it is so easy to be confident and have a vision or a direction and get lost and forget to do the really important work of listening. So I cannot stress that enough. People need to be heard. They need to feel heard, not just be heard, but actually feeling heard. And you learn so much more. What you do as a leader once you've effectively listened is so much more successful instantaneously. It is more efficient. It is more effective. You get the alignment, you get the buy-in, you avoid all the pitfalls and the trap if you've been effectively listening, if you've been asking those great questions. I cannot stress it enough. Listening first is going to change your leadership game very, very quickly, and your personal game. It's very hard, but a lot of those skills work both personally and professionally, I'll say.
Thank you so much, Megan Robinson from eLeader Experience. We're going to put your information in the comments so that people can find out more wonderful things from you and maybe even get some training. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff. I want startups to be wildly successful. So one of the best things you can do to accomplish that is book a synergy call with me at businessriff.com. And join us again next time for Stuck, Time to Improv.